Broadcasting from the Vancouver Convention Center in British Columbia, Solutions Review is on location at the FME User Conference 2022, the peak of data integration. Brought to you by Safe Software.
I'm Doug Atkinson, and we are here in Vancouver, British Columbia at the FME User Conference 2022, and we are joined by a couple of partners from New Zealand and Australia. Ruby Donaldson, Director of Australia. John Arnerich, Director of New Zealand.
Yep.
I have that right.
Yeah.
Smack on.
Yeah, you got it right.
Excellent.
Good start.
We're off to the races.
Yeah.
So before we get into your experience here and the value you're getting out of a conference like this, I'm curious to just get a little overview around Locus and how you've been growing and developing.
Well, first of all, thanks, for the opportunity to have a chat with you guys.
You bet.
Like a lot of companies, started with a bunch of mates back in 2000, just talking about, what could we be doing in some different fields in terms of what we had in day jobs. So we're just shooting some ideas around, and one of the guys found this company that had the GPS phones that they were making that gave you a lat and a long, so you could get some coordinates and some location. So we started playing with them, and we started to pick up a little bit of work in terms of locational type services. So that kind of carried on, a little bit successful, but we're sort of just a little bit of pocket money, to be honest. Then a few years down the road, we stumbled into FME, and we actually thought that could actually be a useful bit of kit in regards to some of the data that we were capturing and trying to make more useful to potential clients. Pretty soon though, we figured that actually FME is where it really was at, and maybe, so we kind of pivoted, to be honest. And so mid-2000s, we really started putting our head down and getting into FME. We were able to start with a local government in New Zealand, and really we built upon there with other local governments. So it's just a classic situation of a bunch of people just getting together, trying something different, and that's how we fell into FME.
Well, and you've subsequently expanded to Australia and brought Ruby in.
Yeah, so probably about just over 4 years ago, there was an opportunity that had come up. One of the resellers wanted to exit the business, and John was in contact with him. I was sort of a free agent at the time. I'd been in the industry for about 8 or 9 years. So he approached me to start the operation in Australia, and here we are, going strong.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a story that we've heard consistently across all the partners that we've spoken with here is how well it's going, and it strikes me that the FME engagements are an incredible competitive advantage, particularly within governments, utilities. Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, look, it really is, and to be perfectly candid from the beginning, one of the big advantages with FME was the price point compared to...
Right.
Well, honestly, if you're an organisation, you're trying to use a new bit of software that you haven't used before, what's the worst that can happen? It's going to cost you a few grand. It's not going to cost you like several $100,000, right? So you can afford to have, do your own investigation, your own research. And, we were working with clients, from the very beginning, showing them the advantages and the use cases. And then the price point is more, is that all it costs? And it's like, so it became an easier thing to actually get into an organisation. Now, obviously, over time, those organisations have bought a whole lot more licenses, and so what they pay now compared to what they paid at the beginning is a different situation. However, it was a price point for us at the beginning that actually did make it easier for us to get some penetration into those industries. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we were talking with Dale and Don yesterday, the founders, and they both mentioned the idea of landing and expanding.
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing as well?
I think with the introduction of subscription, it's making it easier for clients to sort of look at towards the business and say, what else can we do with FME? Because the pricing barriers have been removed, and then it really becomes a question of what resources do we have, what can we achieve in this period of time. I think when COVID kind of hit, it did sort of make people look internally of the business and say, what are we going to do? So whilst a lot of things were contracting, I think that tech space was expanding, and so FME obviously benefited from that. But the diversity of the product means that there's so many applications for it, not just within that GIS team, but across the accounts team, even we see a lot of it in the asset management team, and so it's sort of growing and expanding in terms of its use case, and then therefore it's easier to go back into the clients that we already have and start talking about how can we grow your business, and then through the subscription it's obviously much easier to do that.
Is that what you're seeing as well, the idea that it may be spatial that gets you through the door, but then they realize that this is just basically high-powered data integration, irregardless of.
So there's a couple of things that happen, right? So the concept of land and expand isn't peculiar to SAFE, for example. Other software kind of distributors want to do the same type of thing. But what happens with FME is that invariably, I kind of call it the life cycle of a butterfly. It kind of starts, the caterpillar stage, if you like, starts somewhere in a spatial sense in an organisation. Often it's a GIS team, and so somebody has seen a particular usage. They've got some data that's trapped in a silo, and they need to actually extract it out of there and use it and share it with other people. What then happens is that other people in that organisation are seeing what happened and seeing how easy it is to actually use. And so Ruby, quite rightly mentions asset management, the accounts team, etc.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, you've actually now developed an internal resource, an internal expert within that organisation that can help spread that gospel for you, if you like. And so they can show those other people within an organisation just how easy it is to switch on, to use. There's no coding required, right? So it's like point and click, and they really act as a bit of a champion within an organisation, which does make our life easier. And basically, they're doing a bit of a sales job for you, which is awesome. And then we can come in, we can start talking to those other teams, and we can say, hey, we can talk a little bit more in depth to you about asset management. What kind of asset management tools are you using? And we've got some use case stories. SAFE itself on its website is replete with resources in terms of stories from all around the world. And what we find in New Zealand and Australia is no different from the rest of the world. Basically, those same asset management systems are used in California, London, Nairobi, Auckland, Sydney, wherever. And so we can use those use cases from around the world to say, hey, what you're trying to do is not so very different from what's happening elsewhere, and you can see the outcomes. So here's a pathway for you guys to look forward and to use FME on.
Yeah, so I'm curious if you're seeing this as well, but we've had a few customers, FME customers, come by for interviewing, and one of the things that they've been consistent about is that they used FME at previous jobs, and when they've moved to the next job, they brought it with them. Are you seeing that as well on some of the business development?
So there is a lot of movement at the moment. People are
there sure is.
There's lots, right? And so it's super beneficial for us because you spend so much time with this person, and you've built a really good relationship with that client. And then they move on, and then they champion bringing the product somewhere else. So it's always a little bit exciting.
It's one of the greatest phone calls you ever get.
Yeah, and it's happening more and more. I had one just the other day, and so it's great. All that time that you put in supporting clients, does help to grow your business over time as well when they go into new organizations. And sometimes, the new organization might have an FME license floating around, but they're not sort of utilizing it in the right way, and so then you just need that one person to kind of pull the trigger on it, and then we see it kind of grow.
Well, and it's not just the technology that they're loyal to as well, right? I mean, speak a little bit about how you build a relationship with a client over and above the technology, right? You're offering support services. Yeah,
that's right. I think people throw around words about being authentic and all that sort of thing, and I don't know, I'm not so big on labels for that kind of behaviour. I think you are who you are, and if you act with integrity and you act with honesty and and you sort of genuinely are trying to help that person get ahead and solve their problems in their business. And you are trying to establish a rapport with them, and everybody is different, obviously, and you try and understand that client on a personal level as well as a business level. And if you can establish that connection, that trust, that's when they think, well, if I go to a new organisation, right, I can get some temp licences from John or Ruby. I know that we're not going to chase you up for a buck straight away. We understand it's going to take you a little period of time to get yourself into that new organisation. Hey, here's a bit of kit that you've worked on somewhere else that you think has got some applicability to where they are now. And just sort of like give them that space just to, I guess, show the value of FME within that organisation. And so, it's, I wish I could put a term on it, but there really isn't. It's just really just being patient, just being loyal to them as well, and just to let them know that, hey, I understand that, and we understand that you're trying to advance your career. So if we can help you a little bit by just working alongside you, and when the time's right, and if it works out, then that's totally awesome that we get to engage with you and your new organisation whenever that does happen. And look, we're really lucky. I've got some people that have moved 3 or 4 times, and it's like, do I get a 10% now that I've introduced it for the 4th time? And I'm like,
a lot of them move from New Zealand to Australia, which is always great for me.
Yeah, not so good for us.
You should pay for the plane ticket.
Yeah, I reckon.
John does all the hard work, and I get all the rewards.
So it's just trying to, just be the person you are, I think, because I don't know any other way to do it, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just trying to just establish that relationship. And
I think that's it. It's being that trusted advisor. It's establishing that, that level of integrity and commitment. We see it over and over again. And it's the same with us. I mean, one of our best prospects are the ones that just moved.
Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah.
You see the change on LinkedIn, and it's like,
yes,
let's go call them up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I asked this of everybody. I'm going to ask it of both of you. Ruby first. Advice that you would offer to somebody who is trying to get their data integration to the next level. So what should they be thinking about in terms of, the things that they should be wanting to bring to the first conversation that they have with you or your team?
Are they like new users of FME, or have they been like?
I think they have not used. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're using. They know data integration. They know it's not working well enough. They need some next level. They have data that isn't quite.
Yeah. Okay.
Being integrated properly.
I always sort of tell clients a good place to start. There's so many resources out there. So SAFE are like really good with all of the documentation. There's the FME Hub, there's the FME Academy. All of those resources are free. Clients always comment to me how great it is, the amount of free resources that are out there to get people started. And a lot of the time, if they're starting out with FME, they might be able to purchase the license, but they don't have the budget to then go off and do a whole bunch of training. So you're kind of not leaving them in a lurch when you provide so much online. But then, Locus as a company, we also invest quite a lot in new clients, giving them support that we don't necessarily charge for, because we realize that, somebody who doesn't have this knowledge and also doesn't have the knowledge of FME is going to need a bit of hand-holding in the beginning. And we do often find that over time, we will see the return on that. So, the client tends to really appreciate it, and it creates a bond that sort of goes through the ages. And then through all of that support and through the training, I mean, the actual professional training courses are really, really good to get started, so the introduction. But we also do talk to clients about customizing some of the days so that they can look at some of the use cases that are unique to their business. And that's kind of like it's like a shortcut, if you will, to getting some real capability internally. And then we look at what sort of investment is there currently in what they're doing. And so For some of them, it's like they're trying to convince the business that FME is a fit. They know there are problems, but nobody really wants to listen right now. So we provide them with free sort of development licenses, FME desktop, FME server. We sort of tend to give them,
build
we
the
help them
business case internally.
to help them build a business case. That's right.
Yeah.
And more often than not, they're successful in doing that, and then it's it just sort of creates that foundation for us to help them grow.
Yeah, that's great. John, is building a business case good advice? Help them?
Yeah, it is. And then just adding on to what Ruby had to say, I think, I think at Locus, when you engage with somebody who's got that interest in the FME, I think, I just really want to sort of try and put them at ease, just let them know that we're here to listen and to kind of understand as best we can what it is that they're trying to achieve. And I guess then try and encourage them to say, hey, look, you're not the first person who's had this kind of issue. And again, maybe point to some situations that we're aware of that are similar or like, just to give them a little bit of confidence that, they're on the right path. And as Ruby said, we can set them up with some licensing just to begin with, just to step your toe into the water. And then if you're looking at developing your very first workspace, then one of our team, can be sitting alongside you, maybe not physically because of COVID, but, over the phone or over Teams or whatever it is, and just help you just work your way through that very first one that you're doing and get an outcome for you, because ultimately you're going to need to buy FME, and the person who's interested in using it is not normally the person who gets assigned a check at the end of the day. And we appreciate that whilst they might have excellent skills when it comes to data integration or understanding their business, writing a business case may not necessarily be their number one skill set, right? And of course, we've done these things on many occasions. So we can help them write the internal case, show them the cost-benefit analysis. Just the time saved is such a big deal, right? And the second thing is people get bored doing manual menial tasks. I didn't go to university. I didn't crank up a student loan debt to basically, copy this from here to there and da-da-da-da-da. So if I can find a way that I can chop that 5-hour job down to, 7 minutes or 2 minutes, right? I can go and do something a little bit more interesting. And I can also show my value to the company that, hey, I've demonstrated that I can knock over this job. I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones. If you let me loose, I can go and do it as well, right? And so you want to help them advance their own career, right?
Yeah.
And they're helping you. We get a sale, we get support, we get training, a little bit of consulting perhaps. But by helping them, they help us. So it's symbiotic.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, and then you get a little bit trusted. They go on to that next job, that new opportunity, and just follow that.
Yeah, it's great.
It's worked so far.
It's tremendous. Well, it sounds like it's working great. John, Ruby, we want to thank you very much for swinging by.
Thanks for having us.
It was a great conversation. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show and the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us. This is a great event. We really look forward to coming up to it. It's so nice after 2 years of COVID that we're able to actually
see some people.
Yeah,
that's right.
Jump on the big silver bird and get out here.
Yeah, tremendous.
That's really good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.